Just hours after the Democratic Party took back the House of Representatives on November 6th, Nancy Pelosi decided to rob the base of what little optimism they had by calling for bipartisanship almost immediately.
And we will strive for bipartisanship.
No! And of course, she doubled down just a few days later by saying this in an interview with CNN's Chris Cuomo.
We have an obligation to try to find common ground.
No! So naturally, it seems as if Nancy Pelosi is already waving the white flag. She's signaling that her and Democrats are willing to surrender, they're willing to roll over and die and succumb to whatever Republicans demand and not fight for a true progressive agenda, but hold. Because they just decided on legislation they'll be introducing first that's surprisingly adequate. Yeah, we're talking about the same Democrats who lost 1,000 seats in legislatures across the country. Now, they're going to introduce something that's actually good. So as Peter Overby of NPR reports, Democrats will take control of the U.S. House in January with big items topping their legislative to-do list, remove obstacles to voting, close loopholes in government ethics law, and reduce the influence of political money. Party leaders say the first legislative vote in the House will come on H.R. 1, a magnum opus of provisions that Democrats believe will strengthen U.S. democratic institutions and traditions. It's three very basic things that I think the public wants to see, said Representative John Sarbanes, who spearheads campaign finance and government ethics efforts for the House Democratic Caucus. He said H.R. 1 will demonstrate that we hear that message loud and clear, but even Sarbanes admits the quick vote is just the first step. Republicans who control the Senate are unlikely to pass the bill, and President Trump is unlikely to sign it. Give us the gavel in the Senate in 2020 and we'll pass it in the Senate, Sarbanes said. Give us a pen in the Oval Office and we'll sign those kinds of reforms into law. The bill would establish automatic voter registration and reinvigorate the Voting Rights Act, crippled by a Supreme Court decision in 2013. It would take away redistricting power from state legislatures and give it to independent commissions. Other provisions would overturn the Supreme Court's Citizens United ruling, which declared political spending is First Amendment free speech. They would mandate more disclosure of outside money and establish a public financing match for small contributions. So, hang on a second. You're telling me that Democrats not only have an actual policy agenda going into 2019, but they have a strategy to push for that? Because their strategy in saying, if you elect us, we will sign X policy into law, is something that I've been saying they should do with regard to other policies that are populist, like Medicare for All and nationwide legalization of marijuana. They're actually doing something that is good and common sense. Color me surprised. Now, if you were to add paper ballots to that bill and ranked choice voting and making voting a national holiday, or elections a national holiday rather, that would be a virtually perfect bill. Now, is it possible that Democrats introduce this piece of legislation and then run away from it entirely and never mention it again? Yes, that's possible, given the history of Democrats. Is it possible that they introduce this legislation and there's so many amendments that are added that ends up watering it down to the point that it just becomes unrecognizable? Yes, that's also a possibility. But is this a good start for Democrats? Yes, this is a very good start for Democrats. And if they did this with other policies like Medicare for All, as I just mentioned, nationwide marijuana legalization, breaking up the big banks, and a federal jobs guarantee, and promised to sign all of these bills into law if Americans give them power, they would be unstoppable. Because even if you are dissatisfied with Democrats in other areas, and we all have a reason to be dissatisfied, if they push for something like Medicare for All that would literally save lives, that wouldn't just get people to support them. They wouldn't just acquiesce, but they would enthusiastically support Democrats again. So why are they doing this? One, I think maybe some people within the party finally are beginning to realize if we want to win, we have to actually come with a strategy. We need a legislative agenda, and we need to do what the people want us to do. And second of all, I think that you have yourself to thank. Yes, you watching, because it's your continued pressure on Democrats, your relentlessness over the last 2 years to get them to move left, that maybe is starting to have a small effect. Maybe a small effect, but it's an effect nonetheless. That's really important. And also, when we have freshman congresswomen like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, who will be really monopolizing discourse when it comes to policy, I think that other lawmakers are realizing that they're going to have to be more like those progressives if they want to, one, have any media attention, right? Because all of a sudden, the media likes figures like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because the enthusiasm is palpable for progressive candidates. And two, if they want to actually get anything done, you've got to have the grassroots behind you. And those people like Rashida Tlaib and Ocasio-Cortez, they're the ones who have the momentum behind them. So maybe some within the party are beginning to see that this is the only way they're going to be able to take on Republicans. Now, is this also, the cynic in me wonders if this is just, an attempt from maybe leadership in the party like Nancy Pelosi to possibly thwart off an insurgent challenge to her leadership role? Possibly. And I'll plug the petition that I created to make Barbara Lee House Speaker because I still think that needs to happen. But I think it's really important to give Democrats credit where it's due. I'm all about that positive reinforcement. This is a great step in the right direction. It's a great first step. But let's keep up the momentum, Democrats. We need more of this. I think they're doing something that they haven't done in a really long time. They're starting to kind of maybe sort of listen to the people. And good on you, Democrats. It's a good start.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.